specifically a by-election in the Grand Bay constituency. But it has been an election that has garnered quite a bit of interest nationally, and in just under 2 hours, we will find out who is the victor among the Dominica Labour Party candidate, Dr. Vince Henderson, and the independent candidates, Julius Gabriel, better known as Handbag, and Clarenton Bacchus Andrew. The by-election became due following the passing of the late parliamentary representative for the Grand Bay constituency, the Honorable Edward Regis, who passed on September 1. We are broadcasting live from the Grand Bay Youth Center, where the results will be pouring in over the next hour, and the polls have closed at 5 p.m., and the count is on the way. On the panel with me this afternoon is Dominica's ambassador to the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States and CARICOM, His Excellency Felix Gregoire. He's a former career public servant, and he served as secretary to the cabinet. Before that, he was permanent secretary in the Ministry of Education, in the Ministry of Communications and Works, and also in the Ministry of Agriculture. I'm also joined by Dr. Gerard Jean-Jacques. He's a political scientist and the current Chief Development Planner in the Ministry of Economic Affairs, Investment and Planning. Gentlemen, hello and welcome to Grand Bay.
Thank you very much. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Dr. Jean-Jacques, welcome to the broadcast.
Well, yes, it's a pleasure to be here. I always like driving up to Grand Bay. I actually used to do that as an ordinary line. So while I've been up there, it's a beautiful location. Happy to be here today.
Your general views, and I will start with Ambassador Gregoire, your general views on today's vote, the lead up to the by-election. Certainly there has been a lot of interest in the outcome of this election, and even if the results may seem predictable, there is high anticipation around the election. What do you think accounts for that, Ambassador?
Well, basically, the people of Grand Bay, I have tremendous respect for the people of Grand Bay. They are people who are very serious. I've heard many adjectives to describe people of Grand Bay. But when you deal with people of Grand Bay, you feel how serious they are, how committed they are, and how they stick to their principles. So I expect the people of Grand Bay to send a very clear message to all of us.
Dr. Jean-Jacques, your take on this election and what we've observed in the lead-up in the past month.
My take on this election of... Oh, this election, sorry, the first election.
This election, this by-election, yes.
Interesting. You know, every election is a moment to sit back and learn, observe, and hope as well. This election is particularly interesting because we have what some have called a David-Goliath situation. I don't believe it is a David-Goliath situation. We also have an interesting situation where out of the 3 candidates, 2, it is said, are not from the constituency. So that makes it very interesting. Then you have a very popular, it appears, candidate from the constituency. So that makes for an intriguing campaign, an intriguing election. Leading up to today, it has been indeed interesting, where you have a number of, you have a lot of resources coming from the outside of the community, mobilizing outside of the community to come in here to campaign. I found that pretty interesting.
Yes, we can talk about some of that later, but I just wanted to bring our viewers up to date before we launch into a full discussion about the trends of the elections we have seen in this Grand Bay constituency as far back as 1970. And although the constituency is considered a Labour Party stronghold now, for a period of about 15 years, it was held by the Dominica Freedom Party. We had DFP representatives in the person of Ralph Stanley Fadell Avon Anthony Kazami, and Juliana Henderson from 1980 to 1985. It was in 1985 that Pierre Charles of the Dominican Labour Party wrestled the seat away from the DFP, having put in many years of community service and really paid his dues before he was voted in as the parliamentary representative. He was the MP from 1985 to 2004, and upon his death in 2004, John Fabian of the DLP held the seat until 2009, and then Justina Charles, 2009 to 2019, serving for 2 consecutive terms. Edward Regis, the last MP, served from 2019 to 2021. The main opposition, UWP, on the other hand, has not had success in this constituency. In fact, in the 2019 general elections, the candidate Ned Paquette was the only candidate to lose his deposit. That is, he did not poll more than 1/8 of the votes cast. So it's against all of this background, Ambassador, that I wanted you to assess the chances of the candidates in this election. Dr. Jajak has already indicated that he does not think that it was, in fact, a David versus Goliath situation. What are your views?
Well, in terms of elections, you may think that the results will go one way, but sometimes there are challenges. There are some things that you do not take into consideration or you're not aware of. Obviously, this is a Labour Party stronghold. There's no question about that. The opposition has made no effort to do anything serious in Granby. And I like to deal with examples, practical examples. Let us look at James Alexander, who was a candidate twice for the UWP. Now, James Alexander was the principal of the Granby Secondary School, okay? And James Alexander was loved by the people of Granby. Students, parents loved James Alexander for what he was doing for the students and the community of Granby. But then some people may have forgotten there was one year the government tried to transfer James Alexander from the Granby Secondary School to some school in Roseau. Now, to be honest with you, I was the permanent secretary of the Ministry of Education when that happened. And that decision was not a decision of the ministry. I am clear on that. It was not a decision of the ministry. It was a decision taken outside of the ministry. Anyway, the ministry had to come up to Granby. I was present, Minister for Education was there, to do what we call damage. It used to be a big thing at the time, damage control. And then we salvaged the situation, and James Alexander remained as principal. Now, James Alexander ran in the general elections twice and lost. So you ask yourself, why a man who's loved so much by the community would lose? So this is something to ponder on. The people are serious people. You are the principal of the school. We have greatest respect and admiration for you. We'll defend you to death. But when it comes to a parliamentary representative situation, we know who we want. We know who we want.
And you think this very same attitude might apply in this election, that the people have already determined who it is they want to represent them in this election?
Well, I know before you go to Dr. Jean-Jacques, I must say that I have been on the ground during the days leading up, and I've spoken to a lot of people, and people have said what their problems are, what their concerns are, what they like and what they don't like. Clearly, you were hearing that. But when it came to, but are you going to vote? They say, of course I'm going to vote. Despite all what they will tell you, the final question is, are you going to vote? Definitely. Nobody, I didn't hear anybody say, they had reservations. They're definitely going to vote. So that might show up in the voter, what do you call it? The attendance? Not the attendance, like, I mean, the voter turnout. Okay, all right. Yeah, the voter turnout. But certainly people wanted to vote. The people want to make a statement. Okay?
Dr. Jazza, is that the impression you have that we will see a statement from the people of Granby? And it takes us to the whole idea of turnout. It is a by-election. And not only that, it is a by-election that's happening during a pandemic. And you do have that tendency in what is regarded as a short seat for people to say, do you think we will see some of that come into play here in this by-election? Or do you, in fact, expect a high turnout?
I don't have the advantage that Ambassador Gregoire has had, that is of being on the ground in the constituency, and I feel like a handicap in that regard. But if we look at the trend, I mean, Granby, opponents against Labour in Granby have pretty much hovered around 200, while the Labour Party candidate has gone up to what, close to 1,000 plus. There was, I think, there was a time when it went up to 300 for the United Workers' Party, I believe. I suspect it's going to be along that line, but it would be very presumptuous of me to say with much definitive position that this is what I believe is going to happen. Because with elections, you really and truly never know where there's a dark horse. And we have seen that there are forces. That's why I don't believe it's the David versus Goliath situation. Mr. Gabriel is no David. I believe he might appear to be a David, but he is as Goliath as they can be. Because if you look at the forces who are with him, behind him, all the machinations, the origin of the machinations, which are really in his favor, these are not David's. The voice associated to Mr. Gabriel, aka Handbag, is one that I have often heard on the radio. And I listen to as many talk shows as I can take. I'm making my business to listen. And that voice is not one that is in favor of Labour. It surely is not one that is opposite to the opposition party. I would say just that.
But you know, Dr. Shadrach, we're going to take a break in a minute to get some results. But before we go, we can get very specific about this, because there has been some talk on the radio talk shows on both sides that the candidate, Julius Gabriel, better known as Handbag, may be in fact a standing candidate for the United Workers' Party. I'm getting from you that you tend to agree with that.
You want me to answer now?
Sure.
I have no doubt. I would bet, I probably would lose, but I would bet that Mr. Gabriel has gotten the blessings of the United Workers' Party, which I believe on its part, the United Workers' Party part, is an interesting move for a party that is in decline. And if you want, we can take this on further. Yes.
I just didn't want the point to go away. So we move a little bit to Aliyah Martin of the Government Information Service, and she has some results for us.
So we've received the unofficial results for
Mr. Julius Gabriel with 17 votes, Mr. Carrington Andrew, 0 votes, and 1 rejected ballot. We move on to polling station D025, A to A of the PHR Secondary School. Dr. Vince Henderson, 51 votes, Julius Gabriel, 8 votes, and Mr. Carrington Andrew, 0 votes. We've also received the results from D027 C2E PHR Secondary School. Dr. Vince Henderson, 67 votes. Julius Gabriel, 10. And Mr. Carrington Andrew, 1 vote. Results also came in from D0211 S to Z, Pierre Charles Secondary School. Dr. Vince Henderson, 76 votes. Mr. Julius Gabriel, 10 votes. And Mr. Carrington Andrew, 0 votes. So that brings a total thus far on official results. Dr. Vince Henderson with 288 votes. Julius Gabriel, 45 votes. Mr. Carrington Andrew, 1 vote.
Well, thanks to Aliyah Martin of the Government Information Service for that update. Just a quick review. Vince Henderson, Dr. Vince Henderson, the Dominica Labour Party candidate, so far 288 votes. Julius Gabriel, 45 votes, and Carrington Andrew, 1 vote. Gentlemen, my objective here is not to shy away from the elections that have been at the fore during the campaign. So we were talking about the fact that it has been suggested that Julius Gabriel is in fact a stand-in for the main opposition, United Workers' Party. Ambassador, you wanted to weigh in on this.
Yes, I made a statement earlier to the effect that the opposition has done nothing in Granby to change how people think about the opposition in Granby. And as Jean-Jacques said, Mr. Gabriel, who was nominated as an independent candidate, is actually a UWP candidate, because when you look at all what has been happening with respect to the activities of the opposition, you can see Mr. Gabriel is actually a candidate of the UWP. They have not denied it. Now, that is what the point I'm trying to make. If you're a political party, you must have a philosophy. You must have a commitment. You must have something to go by. You cannot be hiding. You shouldn't be hiding. How will the people of Granby see you? You are not sending a candidate officially, but Mr. Gabriel is running, and everything you do is to support Mr. Gabriel. The people will not take you seriously. You have to stand for something. As you said before, people of Granby voted Freedom Party at one point. Then they moved to Labour Party because they are supporting a philosophy. They're supporting a program. They're supporting development, a constructive and planned development. But it can be a vai-qui-vai. If it's a vai-qui-vai, you will not be taken seriously. And I am not there to advise the opposition. They have brilliant men in the opposition, but they must get serious. And they must project an image that people will take them seriously.
Dr. Jacques, in all of this, though, and I acknowledge the point you made that you don't think that Mr. Gabriel is a David by any stretch of the imagination, but how much credit do you give him for coming to the fore and declaring himself an independent candidate and taking up the challenge?
I admire people like that, honestly. I love people like that. I embrace people like that. You know why? What I saw in him is a lot of passion, and I feel he sincerely wants development for his community. He may have different ideas, maybe a bit unorthodox, but I really admire the passion and the fact that he said, look, you all will not send anybody, you will not officially support me, but I'm going forward. If my information, is correct, I think he took the same initiative, similar initiative with the bus driver situation. I also learned, but correct me if I'm wrong, that he single-handedly nominated Mr. Joshua Francis some years back for a position of leadership within the United Workers' Party. When nobody was afraid to nominate Joshua Francis, he ran forward and said, I nominate Joshua. So I like that courage, determination to get things done. We need that kind of spirit in community building. But I don't believe parliamentary politics is for Mr. Gabriel. I embrace what he's about, liberation of the people from poverty. Labour Party is about that as well. United Workers' Party claims before that as well. But everybody has his or her own role, and parliamentary politics is not for Mr. Gabriel. Neither, I would say, is it for Mr. Linton.
But something that Ambassador already touched on that I wanted to expand a little on, and Dr. Jacques, I'm still with you, this time with your political scientist cap on. We did see the non-participation of the main opposition parties in the by-election. Both the UWP and the DFP gave reasons related to electoral reform. As a political scientist and looking ahead, what kind of precedents do you think this decision sets for their future participation in elections, including the general election?
That, to abstain from the election was not leadership. If your position, and I heard Mr. Linton, I believe at that moment he was explaining the reason for his party's abstention from the election. He indicated that, well, the first thing I think he said was that the electoral reform that they have requested, not exactly his words, did not come through. And this is a fight of spirit against the people, and they were not going to get on with that fight. The proper thing to do as the leader, the party that leads the opposition in Dominica, would have been to seize the opportunity, abstain if you want, but still maintain a presence in the campaign where you continue to educate. You continue to educate the electorate on what your whole agenda of electoral reform is about. But they have abstained, and therefore, by abstaining from the election, well, I don't think the Freedom Party had much of a chance there either. But by abstaining from the election, essentially they have created a void that is deeper for themselves in this constituency. And therefore, moving forward, I foresee that they will have some difficulty to rebuild from 2019. They have this opportunity now to seize the opportunity right now to rebuild their base, move forward. They did not abstain, okay. But if you abstain, you don't just stay out completely in the background, hiding behind Mr. Gabriel, throwing the same stones, metaphorically, the same stones as you did in 2019. If you notice, Mr. Smith, the tactics that were employed in the last few days were the same as was employed in the week leading up to 2019. Have you noticed that? The scaremongering, the threats, the violent, aggressive protest, same tactics. I heard some persons yesterday saying clearly they're going to disrupt the election today. So hiding behind Mr. Gabriel is not going to be a legitimacy of the United Workers' Party. I believe that was a further shot to his leadership as Mr. Linton to abstain, not only to abstain, but to do nothing to seize opportunities, political opportunity he has now to advance his party's agenda.
Okay, I want to go back a little bit, and I want the gentleman to comment on this. The issue of Vince Henderson not being a constituent or from the Grand Bay constituency. He's not from Grand Bay. He's from St. Joseph. He has represented that constituency before, and the questions arising from that. What is your take on the Dominica Labour Party putting forward Dr. Henderson as a candidate in Grand Bay?
Okay, I will go ahead, but at some point, I would want to say something about the third candidate, Mr. Andrew, because I interacted with him at Bordeaux this week. Now, but going back to your question with Dr. Henderson. Now, Dr. Henderson is not the first person who has been in that position. I remember when Mr. Charles Medard ran in the Soufriere constituency, my constituency, and certainly he wasn't from the constituency. But again, you have to look, and Dr. Jean-Jacques is a political scientist. In this case, and I'm giving my views on the matter, in this case, I can see a clear vision of the Dominican Labour Party. The Dominican Labour Party must have a succession plan. They have a succession plan. And I believe Dr. Henderson is part of that succession plan. And for the Prime Minister, Dr. Roosevelt Skerrit, to come to Granby and to ask the people to support his plan, to me, is a brilliant thing. It wasn't done underhand, you know. He came to Granby, he asked the people, he said, look, he didn't hide, he said, this is the man I would want to run, but I need you to support. It was brave, it was bold, and I know I was talking to somebody and they said, one thing they like about Dr. Skerrit is he can take risk. He can take risk. And in everything you do, there is an element of risk, but you have to be calculated in that. So you can see the Dominican Labour Party has a plan, and part of that plan is to look at the succession planning so that the party can grow. And I fully support that because I've seen other parties, strong parties, without a succession plan, and that led to disaster. It happened to the Freedom Party. I'm being honest about it and bold about it. It happened to the Freedom Party. The succession planning didn't work, and the party, you can see the state of the party today. I'm not saying anything about the opposition because, as I said, there are brilliant minds in that party there. Brilliant minds. And they should listen to people. Listen. When you say something they don't like, they criticize you, they demonize you, they tear you to pieces. Some of what you're saying is to their benefit. All they have to do is to listen to what you're saying so they can take a cue. No, you should do that. So, anyway.
Quite an advice session for,
No, but
for the UWP.
I am passionate because I am very clear on the Constitution. The Constitution provides for us to have an opposition. And I've worked in the public service for how many years? And I have seen why we need the opposition. I've seen the benefits of having a good opposition. And right now, it is a dismal thing to... when I listen to what is happening or what is coming from opposition, it is... I don't know how to describe it. But the opposition has a role to play in our development. It is enshrined in the Constitution. Play a role. Don't try to break down everything. Election is taking place, you want to stop it. And coming back to electoral reform, there's a roadmap for electoral reform. Byron, Dr. Dennis Byron, Justice Dennis Byron, has been here or maybe on social media, virtually, has meetings, people have made suggestions. I'm not sure if he has reported. I'm not sure if he has reported. Or,
I don't think so.
but there's a roadmap. Don't derail it. Don't derail it. Work with the roadmap and see what we get out of it for our benefit. It's not for one party or the next party. It is for the country. And let us not derail the electoral reform that is in place.
Dr. Jaja. We have Alia Martin again. She has some new updated results for us. Alia.
Okay, so for those of you
In us, we are here with the unofficial results from the by-election in Granby. And from polling station D014, Q to Z, Petrol Secondary School, we have Dr. Vince Anderson with 94 votes, Julius Gabriel 17, Mr. Clinton Andrew 0, and 1 rejected ballot. Again, unofficial results, D025, A to A, Petrol Secondary School, Dr. Vince Henderson 51 votes, Julius Gabriel 8 votes, Clarendon Andrew 0 votes. D027, C to E, Petrol Secondary School, Dr. Vince Henderson 67 votes, Julius Gabriel 10 votes, Clarendon Andrew 1 vote. D028, F to H, Fairchild Secondary School. Dr. Vince Henderson, 89 votes. Julius Gabriel, 9 votes. Clarendon Andrew, 0 votes. 1 spoiled ballot and 3 rejected ballots. Unofficial results for polling station D029 I to L, Fairchild Secondary School, 58 votes for Dr. Vince Henderson. Julius Gabriel with 9 votes. Clarendon Andrew, 1 vote and 1 rejected ballot. D0211 S to Z, Fairchild Secondary School, Dr. Vince Henderson with 76 votes. Mr. Julius Gabriel, 10 votes. Mr. Clarendon Andrew, 0 votes. Thus far, we have a total for Dr. Vince Henderson of unofficial results, 435 votes. Mr. Julius Gabriel, 63 votes. And Mr. Clarendon Andrew, 2 votes. Again, this is the unofficial results. Thank you.
Thanks so much to Aliyah Martin of the Government Information Service, and as you heard from her at the very end, unofficial results, Dr. Vince Henderson of the Dominican Labour Party, 435 votes, Mr. Julius Gabriel, the independent candidate, 63 votes, and Mr. Clarendon Andrew, another independent candidate, 2 votes. Dr. Jajak, I wanted to give you the opportunity to weigh in on one of the issues during the by-election campaign, which is the fact that the candidate, Dr. Henderson, was in fact not from this constituency.
You know, I will take this on 2 different levels. One, personal. I have worked personally, but closely with the Prime Minister. And so I have learned that he's pretty adept at selecting persons for the tasks that he has at hand. You might not agree with the reasoning, the approach, but if you examine every decision he has taken where he has identified, nominated somebody, he is pretty good at that. And so I believe his choice, and he made no bones about that. He did not hide. He said clearly, I need, essentially this is my succession planning. Not in his words. And so Mr. Ambassador, Dr. Henderson is intended to be the person to succeed. So the issue here for many persons is legitimacy. Can a man who is not from a constituency truly represent that constituency? There's also the issue of legitimacy for the Prime Minister, because look at what he did. Although he knew it was a high-risk move, he went to people honestly. He said, this is what I'm doing. In other words, then, I want you to trust me in this. He didn't say these words, but this is exactly what he was saying. He said something like, you have been good to us, you have been good to, we have been pals forever. Trust me on this. And it appears to me that they have trusted him, which reinforces his legitimacy, which makes him a bigger player. And the opposition knew that if the results of this election tonight turned in favor of Labour, that would have made Skerrit a bigger man. Hence, the feverish anger, the passion, all the machinations at the back, akin to 2019, sorry. That explains all the passion there. So this, at the heart of this election, well, one issue at the heart of this election is the legitimacy of the candidates. The question is, can Dr. Henderson represent? We have cases. It's not unusual that you have persons who are not from one block, one constituency, who represent persons. Admittedly, this is a big issue in political science, hotly contested. Can a man speak on behalf of a woman in parliament? No, hence, well, that's my opinion, but many people say no, hence we must have X number of women. Right. Mr. Henderson has proven, and there's evidence, there's record there, This is not something I'm making up, and I don't need to, I'm not campaigning. He has shown that he has worked in St. Joseph. He has worked as Minister of Education. He has been Minister of Education for a while. He can deliver. He's a sincere gentleman, and I have no doubt that he can convey, he can translate the emotions and the passion of the people from Granby in Parliament.
We're going to stick with the issue of legitimacy and expand it to eligibility. But before we do that, I noticed a word that both of you used, which was risk. How important is it to take risks in politics to ensure that you win? Ambassador, you can take this one.
Well, I am not a politician myself. I've never run. I've been close to the government machinery. I've been close to political parties. But there are times that people want to keep things as they are. And even if people know that, let's say, a PAL rep is failing for various reasons, people are afraid to say that. They are afraid to say that. They don't want to rock the boat for various reasons. And that is where PM comes in, PM Skerrit comes in. It's not the first time PM Skerrit has been talking to PAL reps with respect to their performance in their constituencies. He said it over and over again, political platforms, general meetings, rallies. He said that because he loves people, he's loyal to his family, his political family, but he's aware of the weaknesses. He's aware, and he's prepared to correct, and that's where the risk comes in. People don't want to take the risk to correct somebody, so they let the thing fester until it cannot be fixed. He's different. He doesn't hate you, he's not against you, but he knows what he knows. And the last election, how many PAL reps, incumbent PAL reps, were replaced? Maybe 7, I don't know, quite a few. Now, who has done that? Who has people prefer to lose an election than move a candidate. Yes.
You agree, Dr. Daga?
Well, I agree that the risk element is extremely important, but you have to be informed, so that the risk is from an informed position. The change from the old guard to the new, quote unquote, in the last election by the Labour was something Mr. Skerrit had to do. He had to do it, and I was simply waiting to see at what point he's going to do it. If you do it too late, as in too close to a general election, then the people will not know the newbies. And you risk losing voters. He knew that, his team knew that, and therefore he was advised, and he took the advice, I suppose, to move a certain point before the general election, to give persons time. That was an intelligent move. Workers took a risk on Mr. Linton in 2014. At that time, they were really going down. They had tried Mr. James had retired. They had tried Mr. John. They had tried Mr. Williams, Mr. Green. The top dogs, quote unquote, were tried and they had failed. There they had a very popular, eloquent speaker, and they were fooled by the eloquence, and they took a risk. Actually, the figures showed that was the best year that they had. I thought, wow, they have it this time. I didn't believe that they would win. They'd have won, and they did not win. But they had the crowds, and Mr. Linton captured attention then. That was a risk they took. Then, in their favor, they got a boost. They did not take another risk to get rid of him when they ought to have done that. Therefore, we have seen a drop in the polls. We have seen a deafening silence, abject ineptitude, absence of an opposition, to the point where some politicians said some time ago, we don't have an opposition. I don't want to say which politician said that. We know who said that. We don't have an opposition. It is true. No real formal organization. They should have taken a risk and gotten rid of Mr. Linton long time ago. It did not do that, and therefore they are paying a price now. Unfortunately, the party continues to decline. And if they're not careful, the party is going to remain as it is. Dominica, of course, will be the losers. We'll have a strong Labour, but no real formal organized opposition to counteract, and not just to counteract. The opposition is part of government in the sense that it has to work with government, hand in hand, to develop the country. So we end up losing, but they should have, risk is very, very important, but you have to know when to take it and how to manage it.
Before we move on to another point, Ambassador, I know you wanted to make this point about the third candidate in the race, the independent candidate, Clarendon Andrew.
Yeah, the thing is, I don't want it to appear as if Mr. Andrew, who was nominated, is not getting any attention. No, I didn't know Mr. Andrew, and on, I think, Tuesday, I was at Bordeaux, and I parked my vehicle on a little spot, a little open spot, and then a gentleman came to me and said, I would like you to see my plans for South City. So I said, what? He said, yes, I would want you to see my plans for South City. So I said, but who are you? He said, I am Julius Tuawash Gabriel. I am the third.
Andrew.
Sorry, Andrew. You see, I underlined Andrew, and I still said Gabriel. Anyway, he said he was Mr. Andrew, but Tuawash. So I said, okay. So he took me to a spot. There's a shop there, and apparently there's an open spot, open room, and maybe a discotheque. No, we don't have discotheques. So on the floor, he had a model city there on the floor. 3D diamond, 3D. And I said, what? And he said, yes, this is my plan for South City. Here you can see the Geneva Stadium. So it wasn't just a playing field. He had his structure there, a stadium. And then he has a plaza. He said, this is the plaza. And then he has a mall. This is the mall. The man has his thing well lined up there. So I asked him, but where is the secondary school? The spiritual secondary school? He told me it is over there, but I didn't put it because you know where it is. So, But the fact is, the man had a plan. Yeah. He had a plan.
And you were impressed with that?
And he didn't know me. He invited me, and I went, and he had a plan. And I said, but are you from Granby? He said, no, I'm not from Granby. I am from, I think, maybe Electoral or someplace like that. But he was inviting people. And so I said, okay, you have this thing here, and I'm watching it. What about the other people? Have you shown that to others? He said, yes, I had it somewhere in town, and Mabouche somewhere he had it. And then he's moving it around so people can see his plan. And I was impressed with that. I am impressed. He's a quiet guy. I don't know why he went into the race, but he had a plan.
He had something to show.
He has a plan. I'm sorry I didn't take a picture of it. My son said, Daddy, why didn't you take a picture of that? I said, oi, that never came to my mind.
That's good. Gentlemen, it would be remiss of us if we did not speak to one of the major issues in this by-election campaign, which is the matter of eligibility. The opposition leader, Lennox Linton, Honorable Lennox Linton, and others have queried the eligibility of Dr. Henderson to contest the polls based on the fact that he represented the state at one point as the ambassador to the United States and to the Organization of American States. Since then, the chairman of the Electoral Commission, Attorney Duncan Stowe, has responded to written queries saying that Dr. Henderson was in fact properly nominated. And this week we heard from Prime Minister Skerrit that he is confident that Dr. Henderson was correctly nominated. It has been a major talking point. I want Dr. Jajak first to tackle this issue. What do you think of all of this?
Yeah, you give me a very difficult one because the angle that you have taken of eligibility, it's more of a legal point of view, and I am not too cool, so I tend not to touch on matters that I'm not aware of about. But I've heard both sides of the argument. That is, side that the law says you have to not be in receipt of any salary, and I am aware that of the argument that Mr. Henderson has not been receiving. There's also the argument that the Supreme Court, I believe, has already ruled in the matter, indicating that ambassadors or something to that effect, that rule doesn't apply. But my eligibility for me, I take it from a different perspective. And the other perspective is it's a really, really big pet peeve for me. It's a real bobo for me. But I don't want to get into it right now because I suspect Ambassador Gregoire has something to say on that legal, so I want to leave it legal for now.
Yes, I suspect Ambassador Gregoire is putting on his public servant.
Boy, he has something there for us.
Career public servant.
Yes. But I want us to talk about my perspective of my issue, the eligibility matter.
We'll come back to that.
Thank you.
Ambassador Gregoire, I see you've pulled up your Public Service Act, I believe it is, Act number 27 of 1991.
Right.
Tell us about that.
Now, to be honest with you, I've heard different things with respect to eligibility. But to be honest with you, I do not understand what is being said. There are so many things being said. You're an ambassador. You in geothermal, you represent over there. OASA, you are still the permanent representative. All kinds of things. But, as I said before, the whole question has to do with whether Mr. Henderson is a public officer, right? Now, let's go back to 2000. In 2000, I was PS of Education, and both Prime Minister Skerrit now and Dr. Henderson, they were at the college. The we moved into the State College.
Yeah.
That was done when PM Skerrit was Minister for Education. But they were at the college. And they both resigned. And both letters came to me as the PS. And I submitted them to the Public Service Commission. So they resigned, or they asked for the commission to accept their resignation, but the letter went through me. So I know that. So you expect 20 years after that for Dr. Henderson, who's not a lawyer, not to know what to do? In 2000, he knew what to do. Anyway, that's only history. But coming back to the Act, and it has to do with the public office. So a public officer means, that I'm reading the Act now, the public officer means a person holding or acting in any office specified in the first schedule. That's the first schedule to this Act. So you go to the first schedule to this Act to see whether ambassador is there. And A, you have to start first page, because A. On the first page, there is no ambassador there.
No, it is not listed.
So if you are not on that schedule, you cannot be a public officer. Nobody, like in my case, I'm an ambassador as well. I'm not a public officer. Nobody can make me a public officer according to the Act. So you may want something, you may think something is like that, but that is not the important thing. The important thing is what is in the Act. And the Act says that you have to be in the schedule, and the ambassador position is not there. So I don't know if the geothermal thing is there, maybe not. But, you know, that is why I say, I don't understand what is being said.
Well, you think that the issue is a little bit
What is
confused.
it? I am not even going into money. I go by that. You see me? The law is law. I stay there. That is the law. I'm not going to don't talk about remuneration compensation, nothing like that. So I'm not even going there. And I believe in my own experience, getting money from the public treasury doesn't disqualify you. Because when we have an election, right? As far as I'm aware, persons who are parliamentarians continue to get their salary. If I'm wrong, somebody will correct me. All the ministers remain ministers until they get. That's from the public purse. The leader of opposition remains leader of opposition until he didn't want to leave the last election, you know. For some reason, he was arguing he would not go to the president, but he was still the leader of all kinds of things. But I'm sure he was getting paid. So what is the problem with the money? So, but in any case, as I said, the money is immaterial. I'm just giving you my views. But it's the law, the Public Service Act. So people should take the act, read it, and then come and talk.
The Public Service Act 27 of 1991. Dr. Jajak, you wanted to share some views from a personal perspective about the matter of eligibility.
Yes. Look, we evolve, and society has evolved to the point where today we say literacy is no longer learning to count one and two, and ABC. We are beyond that. If you do not know how to use the ATM machine, you do not know how to use a smartphone, you do not know how to knock a few keys on the keyboard of a laptop, you're not literate. We have advanced. Having advanced, it means the technologies around the world, the information, or the issues that come up, they require a certain level of comprehension, a certain level of cognitive skills. I think it's about time we had a conversation in Dominica about who can qualify to be a parliamentary representative. We have stuff in the books, by the way, that says, you cannot be a public officer, for example. You should not be bankrupt. There's a certain level of education. But I'm saying we now should revisit this description of who qualifies, up it a bit. In my view, a parliamentarian must have a university degree. You must. Why? I mean, the issues that, like I said, the issues we have today are complex. They are more complex than they are before. Not because human beings or makeup has changed, but because the environment in which we live, that has changed. And therefore, for a policy maker, a man in the legislature, to take a decision, he or she ought to have the capacity to understand. That capacity is developed not just by going to school, but by assiduously applying yourself to reading, to understand, broadening your knowledge, to applying what you have learned, to using some common sense figure out to solve problems. These skills you develop at higher education, they're invaluable. We also must look at the temperament thing a little more. I often say to persons, the reasons we have not had a war in Dominica in the last 20 years is because Mrs. Skerritt is the Prime Minister. Calm, cool, he flares up, and then he cools and quick. If you had a hot head, if we had a hot head as our Prime Minister in the past few years, we would have had a lot of bloodshed in the street before, because we have had opportunities where the forces could have been asked to take down some fellas. That hasn't happened because of the leadership. Now, my position many times has been, we should be tougher. But then in retrospect, I say, boy, if we had been tougher, there would have been a lot of blood. Temperament is important. Education, temperament, these things are very important. This election, this by-election, has brought this home a little even more for me. Initially, when I want to call him Mr. Handbag, Mr. Gabriel was asked, what's his plan for Grand Bay? He said, give them free money. Not that line. He said, give 5,000 here, 10,000 here. I said, but hold on a while now. That is free money, just give in. But where is it coming from? And then I realized, no, you can't take him too seriously. He's saying what he can say. And I said, good Lord, if, for God forbid, this gentleman appears in Parliament on the floor, and he has to stand to debate supplementary estimates of this X amount of money, and this fancy bill, etc., etc., well, what's going to happen? Huh? What's really going to happen? Then I heard him in some context. Where was that again? He was somewhere delivering a speech, and he had a person in the background telling him what to say, and I said, goodness gracious me. So I said, but this guy seems to be a nice guy, very motivated, you know, he can get things done. But we ought to be a little more, we have to have a conversation about who we allow to drive our boats. You want somebody to build a nice cabinet. Although I might be a very nice fella, don't come to me, because you will not get it looking so nice. I accept that. So there is a role for everybody, and we have to make some time to talk about this. I don't see us doing that, but this is a big issue for me, because I firmly believe for a man cannot speak on policy matters if he doesn't understand the nitty-gritty, the basics, and then, of course, the nitty-gritties of things.
I acknowledge that you said from the top that this is your personal take on the matter, because you will admit that there are some who think that regardless of your background, regardless of your education, that if you feel you have something constructive to offer to national development, that you should not be hampered in doing so. Did you want to add something, Ambassador?
Yes. That is what Dr. Jean-Jacques would like to see. But the Constitution says, in terms of qualification to be a member of the House, the person is able to speak, and unless incapacitated by blindness or other physical cause, to read the English language with a degree of proficiency sufficient to enable him to take an active part in the proceedings of the House.
That is where we were done years ago.
So people are saying, you have to, once you can read and write, you can be that is what it says. And today, I heard somebody saying that whether Mr. Gabriel has, if any degree of proficiency, speak or read and write. Somebody was saying that today. But the fact is, that's what it says. Okay? But I agree with Jean-Jacques, we have to move away from that. We have to move away from that, because that is that is unacceptable in this day and age. I agree with you.
We have evolved. No? And this law remains etched in the past while we have moved forward. You know? Yeah.
All right, gentlemen, let's talk a little bit about the...
No more results?
Not yet. The latest I have, Ambassador, the latest I have is the DLP candidate, Dr. Vince Henderson, 488. Mr. Julius Gabriel, the independent candidate, 69. And Mr. Clarendon Andrew has so far polled 2 votes. And at this point, I'm looking at my screen, gentlemen, and I'm sure you're seeing the same thing that I am seeing, which is that the Government Information Service can, at this moment, project that Dr. Vince Henderson will win the Granby constituency in the by-election held today here in Granby. So the projected winner in the by-election in the Granby constituency is Dr. Vince Henderson. I'm moving ahead of myself, meaning to say that this is the projection of the Government Information Service, that Dr. Vince Henderson is the projected winner. Aliyah has joined us, and I take it she has some more results for us. Aliyah, please go ahead.
Okay, so once more we have the unofficial results, and I will just do a recap of all the results, including the new results. So we have from polling station D011 A to C, Granby Youth Center, Dr. Vince Henderson, 114 votes. Mr. Julius Gabriel, 25 votes. Mr. Clarendon Andrew, 1 vote. D014 Q2Z Pearchild Secondary School, Dr. Vince Henderson, 94 votes. Mr. Julius Gabriel, 17 votes.
Mr. Clarendon Andrew, 0 votes, and 1 rejected ballot. We also have from D025A to A, Fairchild Secondary School, Dr. Vince Henderson, 51 votes, Mr. Julius Gabriel, 8 votes, and Mr. Clarendon Andrew, 0 votes. D026B to B, Fairchild Secondary School, Dr. Vince Henderson, 53 votes, Julius Gabriel, 6 votes, Clarendon Andrew, 0 votes. D027C to E, Fairchild Secondary School, Dr. Vince Henderson, 67 votes, Mr. Julius Gabriel, 10 votes, and Mr. Clarendon Andrew, 1 vote. D028, F to H, Fairchild Secondary School, Dr. Vince Henderson, 89 votes, Mr. Julius Gabriel, 9 votes, Mr. Clarendon Andrew, 0 votes, 1 spoiled ballot, 3 rejected ballots. We have D029, I to L, Fairchild Secondary School, Dr. Vince Henderson, 58 votes, Mr. Julius Gabriel, 9 votes, Mr. Clarendon Andrew, 1 vote, and 1 rejected ballot. D0210, M to R, Fairchild Secondary School, Dr. Vince Henderson, 78 votes, Julius Gabriel, 12 votes, and Mr. Clarendon Andrew, 0 votes. D0211, S to Z, Fairchild Secondary School, Dr. Vince Henderson, 76 votes, Mr. Julius Gabriel, 10 votes, Mr. Clarendon Andrew, 0 votes. That brings us to a total of unofficial results thus far. Dr. Vince Henderson, 680 votes, Mr. Julius Gabriel, 106 votes, Mr. Clarendon Andrew, 3 votes, 5 rejected ballots, and 1 spoiled ballot.
Well, thanks to Alia Martin
You're
of
welcome.
the Government Information Service, and I think the gentleman want to examine those results a little bit more closely. Final unofficial results at the moment. Dr. Vince Henderson of the Dominica Labour Party, 680 votes. Mr. Julius Gabriel, the independent candidate, 106 votes. And Mr. Clarendon Andrew, the independent candidate, 3 votes.
Look, the reason why I took the document is because I'm trying to relate that to on the ground. Like you have PS Child Secondary School, but which communities vote there? And I assume most of the communities around Lali and so on are voting there. But there is how should I put it, a section of the community. And now I notice they must be voting at the Mountain Resource Center. And I assume, I could be wrong, that these are people from Tetmon down. Now, if Vince is leading now, by the time we reach the Tetmon, Grand Colibri people, that's it.
Well, it certainly is it, because we have already projected the winner to be Dr. Vince Henderson, so we wouldn't want to go back on that. So Dr. Vince Henderson, projected winner here at the Government Information Service. Dr. Jajak, I wanted to talk a little bit about Dr. Henderson and the way he has conducted this campaign. We came into this by-election knowing that it is a Labour Party stronghold and there's a great likelihood that the Labour Party would have carried the seat. Yet Dr. Henderson has conducted a very spirited campaign. He has been on the ground, he has met with the youth, he has met with farmers, he has been around the village, he has gone house to house campaigning. We get the impression that he did not want to leave anything to chance. In fact, we did hear suggestions in the media that this approach may have been in response to a perceived threat from the independent candidate. Do you think that was what was going on, or is this simply the way the Dominica Labour Party conducts its electioneering?
No, the latter, without a doubt. As a matter of fact, I think even those who said what they said, they know. That is class, that's vintage Labour Party style. Vintage, I mean, I'm not too old. I don't, vintage, when I say vintage, I mean Roosevelt's carrot era, the last 15, 20, that's the style. They will go on the ground, they will press the flesh, they will meet people. I should say too that Mr. Henderson's, what you see of Mr. Henderson, underground households, that is also Mr. Henderson, you know. If you, persons who would have seen him in crowds, in gatherings, you see he's a man always, you know, engaging somebody in conversation, turning around, talking. He doesn't have to know you for him to engage with you in conversation. That is observable fact. You don't have to like him or dislike him to admit that. So what you saw there was Labour doing what Labour does. You respect the people. You do not assume that you have their vote immediately. You go there, meet them, let them know what you're about. That's classic Labour.
Yeah. Well, what I can say is that Dr. Vince Henderson is in fact my neighbor at Castle Comfort. And from the time the by-election was announced, for me to see Dr. Vince Henderson, I have to come to Granby. We're neighbors, but I don't see him at all down there. Granby, that's where I see him. And that shows you the commitment of Dr. Henderson. Now, Dr. Henderson's record, if I have to tell you about Dr. Henderson, we'll be there for a while.
He was your minister at one point?
Yes, I worked with him. He was the Minister of Education. I was the Permanent Secretary.
I think it would be good to hear some of that from somebody who, considering that we've already projected him winner, we're going to be seeing a lot more of him over the next few months, years. Tell us a little bit about Henderson from what you know about him having worked as his PS.
Okay, now you see the kind of person I am. I don't like to get into high-tech stuff. I like to be, you know, simple. Just like Vince himself. When you listen to Dr. Henderson during the campaign talk on radio programs, he's down to earth. Everybody can understand what he says. He's a doctor, yes, but he doesn't forget his roots. He was at St. Joseph, he never forgot his roots. He's meticulous. He has been the campaign manager for DLP. And Dr. Roosevelt Scary doesn't leave any stone unturned. He doesn't either. Now, people compare them. People say they're this, they're that, they're good friends and so on. I remember when Dr. Vince Henderson got married, I was invited, myself and my wife we went to the wedding. And I saw Dr. Skerritt and Dr. Henderson walking into the wedding with their shades. I'll never forget that. They both walked in there with their shades. And you could see, but these are twins, man. You know? They're so close. They're twins. So the friendship is there. And when Dr. Skerritt left education as minister, Dr. Vince Henderson came in as the Minister for Education. They taught at the college together. So I'm only saying that to say that he has the same style as Prime Minister Skerritt. But he is meticulous in what he does. He has a vision. He doesn't give up. There are some people, they on a project and there are difficulties, they give up. You have to stick to it. You have to stick to it. For example, the geothermal project has a lot of challenges. And he's there. Erica came. He's there. Maria came. He's there. He's still fighting to get the geothermal project ongoing. You see, so that is the mettle of the gentleman. So on the ground in Granby, he was on the ground in Granby, listening to the people, finding what they need, you know, what they would want him to do. And I can tell you that talking to people at Granby, some people are very happy that is Dr. Henderson who's running. I'm not taking away from anybody else from Granby. I'm not putting down anybody. I'm just telling you what the people are saying.
So based on that very point you just made, what do you think is in store for the Granby people? Not specifics as to what you think Dr. Henderson will do, but rather what kind of representation do you think he will offer to the people of Granby?
Now, as far as the people are concerned, I like to talk about the people. I Granby people, you know.
I can tell.
They say that they will get their fair chance. Everybody's saying that they'll get their fair chance. Now, I don't know what happened before, but apparently, we are human beings. People are favorites. Because Vince is from outside, they figure, yes, now we're going to get our chance. That is what they told me. I'm not making that up. I was told that by some people, yeah, we know we're going to get our chance. Because, as we know, people have their favorites. If you're from that area, people know you, they're always by you, you know. But in the case of Vince, they see a level playing field. So the people are very hopeful that they will get their fair share. But in terms of development, there are so many things that can be said. I think Dr. Henderson himself mentioned a few on some radio program. Project at the Boulevard, the playing field. It's a very good spot for playing field, but we need to develop it. That's important. Other areas for recreational activities, small businesses, and then agriculture. Now, the government has a matter to resolve. In Grand Colibri, and there's Bordeaux there, a number of people are on a piece of land. I'm not going to call them squatters. They have been occupying a piece of land for years. But those lands are owned by two families. And these people, most of them, don't have a certificate of title for their piece of land. That is a matter that Dr. Henderson will resolve.
You've spoken to him about that?
Who, me? The people told him so.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, the people told, there was a meeting there. I attended a meeting last week, and the people told him so.
Okay.
And there's land. The important thing is there's a nice piece of flat land that can be used for agriculture and other things. So it's going to be an exciting time for people of Granby. And the people themselves are saying that I have something in Patois there, fellas, telling some people stay out of their business because they know what they want. We know what document interfere in our business, brother. We know what we want. And a lot of things will happen. And I think the idea of connecting Soufriere to Tetmon and Granby is a brilliant idea. I mean, that used to be traditionally the thing. I, as a schoolboy, not even a schoolboy, younger than that, used to walk to Granby, Tetmon with my mother. She used to come over with a basket of fish. I walked from Scotshead to Tetmon to sell fish. And the little boy, 5, 6, 7, who used to be her company, didn't carry anything, you know. I just used to be with her. So on the way back, she'd give me maybe a breadfruit on my head to carry back. But she did all the work. So there was that connection between Soufriere and Scotshead, the Elrose lime industry. In fact, my grandfather is from Granby. He came to Soufriere to work on the lime industry. They had a big estate, lime estate. They have the works there, crushing limes, put them in barrels, big things. He came down, got married to my grandmother, and I'm a Gregor. Like Vince. Vince is father from up here. The point I'm trying to make is that we are so interconnected. We are interconnected. If you just check, you'll see a link somewhere. We should not be cutting each other's throat. There's a link somewhere. And so the link is Tetmon Soufriere, Granby, Tetmon Soufriere. Vince saw that, and he mentioned it. So there are a lot of things that happen. We have two jetties down the road, Soufriere and Scotshead. So Soufriere jetty, Soufriere jetty. And then, you know, Granby, going to have boats going down, Soufriere and Scotshead will happen. We have a big road project coming up from Loubier. Now, that thing there, the road is such that it's not like Castle Bruce. You have a wide road, narrow road. the road will be blocked. So I really said, well, look, people can take the boat to French Gazette.
Dr. Jean-Jacques, have you made an assessment from observing Dr. Henderson, what kind of representation you expect him to provide to the people of Granby?
I have been thinking, initially I was thinking of what areas I think he will be focusing on. I expect him to be a very accessible parrot. That is the same way right now many persons, and before when he was in St. Joe, many persons that had his telephone number, you could call him anytime. You could inform him, you know, this is the situation. He would be looking out for you, and I expect him to be on the ground. That is Mr. Henderson's style. I say Mr. Henderson because, by the way, he was also a minister while I worked in the Ministry of Education, the planning unit. And I remember him as being very proactive, and you said he is persistent. There were one or two issues we had to work on, and when I would say, Jean-Jacques, go and do X, Y, and Z, and I went and I reported to him, sir, this is the situation. Okay, well, we have to keep at it until we get it resolved. And what he was trying to do in that case was to help somebody get something done. I suspect Granby is going to be, the constituency is going to be in for infrastructural works. In any case, I think they have some of these things laid out already. But these will come through, as well as he's pro-young, he's very pro-young. So maybe education, more scholarships, more training opportunities. I can see this being a likelihood. Maybe more persons employed on the various schemes. I believe we are in for some advancements in the Granby constituency. He's not a sleeping parrot, and he's very much, in tune to his people. But there was something Ambassador Gregoire mentioned that persons on the ground were saying, that is, now we'll get our share. We suggest that perhaps previously there were different pockets that were underrepresented in the sense that they did not feel that they were getting the piece of the pie. Others were getting. Interestingly, this morning I was having a conversation with a colleague of mine, and I'm just listening right now. She would be very laughing at that, because we were saying, and she told me actually that this is not just in one area of Dominica, it is across many constituencies. Persons who may have voted for the Labour Party would feel that, hey, my corner of this constituency has been neglected. And the question came up, well, how do we deal with this? And for me, this is not just an issue of, well, there's a power rep who is slipping. I don't think there's any power rep who slips. Well, perhaps there are a few years, but generally power reps are hard-working persons. But it's a matter of organizing the representation of the people. Because everybody has a need. There are those who have different, a higher level of need than others. But it's a matter of organizing your team so that you reach every pocket and everybody feels that he's actually or she's getting something from the effort. So it's a matter of organization, and I hope that Mr. Henderson, if he's confirmed the victor, we'll have a team that is so organized that his representation will be structured, it will be informed. After all, he is a holder of a doctorate, PhD. PhD persons are known to be supposed to be very, very strong at analyzing. So an organized and informed representation, not just a if I do something, and I expect that from Mr. Henderson.
All right, we are looking forward to some results from Aliyah in a minute, but as you mentioned earlier, I think both of you alluded to the fact that Prime Minister Roosevelt's carrot has not been shy about the fact that this is in some way succession planning, and he's looking ahead to his future in politics, and of course the future of the political party that he leads. So at the very least, probably in the next few days, what do you expect to see now that Dr. Henderson has been declared, or rather projected to be the winner of the Granby constituency? What do you expect to see unfolding?
Well, it's very difficult to predict, Honorable Roosevelt.
But
Scary.
there's certainly something to look forward to, isn't
I
there?
don't know what he will do. I'm sure he will do something. I mean, it's common knowledge that Parliament meets on Monday. Eh?
Yes.
So that is signaling something to me. Parliament meets on Monday.
And he's very calculated. He's very, very calculated.
So it's very difficult to predict what the PM is going to do. But certainly, I can see the PM telling Vince, boy, you take that from you, that is yours. So I'm waiting for you for the longest while. Take that, you know. I personally would want to see a very harmonious relationship in the government. Now, I served as secretary to the cabinet for 8 years. And I told PM Skerrit when I was through that the major thing I saw in there was the level of friendship, the level of people understanding each other, the level of people thrashing out their concerns in-house, cabinet, and then going out and nobody knows who said what and who did what, but this is the government's position. That is a hallmark of the Dominican Labour Party government. Yes, that family tie inside there, which I sensed when I was secretary to the cabinet. Now, while I'm saying that, and we talk about succession planning, I have been watching Dr. Skerrit on the campaign trail. He's the best. He's the best. We talk about not leaving a stone unturned, but I would hate to run against Rupert Skerrit in any election. And I feel for people who have to run against him because I always know, I believe that Honorable Skerrit will never lose an election. He will give up. He will give up. But he's not going to lose. As long as Skerrit is running election, take it from me, he's not going to lose.
When you say run, you mean as the head of the party?
As the Prime Minister.
Oh, okay.
Now, if he's not Prime Minister and he's the campaign manager like Vince, it's the same thing. He's not going to lose the election. You understand? And there are all kinds of things about what he will do, what he will not do. The Prime Minister, what, 50 years? He's been Prime Minister for 20-something years. This man has so much in him, so much more to do. Of course, he has his family. He has to, you know, he has his family. But Honorable Skerrit has, they believe they're saying what he will do and not. Let me tell you, he has a lot more to do. Now, I hear him saying, he said several times he'll become a preacher.
He has said that.
Several times. No, I take him seriously, eh? Yes. I don't think he'll say just for that. I'm not saying I will join his church, but I expect him to be a preacher at some point.
Yes,
and he will have people, eh?
You have to take him seriously.
He will have people with him because he knows how to mobilize people. But I'm saying all that to say that the future has a lot in store. Some we can see, some we cannot see. And what we need to do is to work with each other. Work with each other. You know how much energy it takes from us, public officers, ministers of government, PAL reps, to get a project done because of hindrances, unnecessary hindrances. Something is going to happen in a community, and you're setting up roadblock after roadblock. So we end up removing roadblock before we start the project. That takes energy. People don't understand how much energy it takes to just remove the roadblocks. And you have not started the project yet. Case in point, the international airport. Committees are being set to frustrate the thing. And it's an airport for everybody, you know. It's not for security, you know.
No.
The airport is for everybody, all of us, except those who say they will not go there because it's who built it, which is like the stadium. People don't go and watch Test cricket. They say, I have my West Indian shirt. Test cricket because it's scared to build the stadium. This is at the level of some people. But what I'm trying to say is, if we work together as one, there's a lot we can do. And the government has shown that it has it to drive us. We have come, look at what Maria did. Look at where we are. Erica, look at where we are. Look at how we dealt with COVID. We have it. But if we all put it together and we go in one direction, we'll do much more. But there are too many impediments, too many roadblocks. And that is what's keeping us back. And the people who are doing that, please, just have some sympathy for your people. Think about your people. Don't tell people don't vaccinate and you vaccinated, man. And you know it is better for you. So it's better for them. So that's what I'm talking about. We are going in one direction. Let's all get vaccinated so we can get out of this situation that we're in, because it's not, look at me having a mask, they're trying to talk. Well, maybe a little water there. I mean, you have a mask, every day you have a mask, man. Jesus.
So, I understand the passion, Ambassador. You seem to be really concerned and proposing that we practice a little bit more unity, more togetherness as we, approach to national development and to issues that affect us as a whole. Dr. Jajak, I have to say that we are winding down this broadcast. We will take some final results in a bit, but I wonder if you had some comments further along the lines of what the ambassador has said.
Well, I want to take on the unity part. I'm one of those who have lamented the absence of the opposition. I do not. I'm of the view that we should come to a point where we actually vote for opposition. So you go to the polls, you vote for the party to be in power, and then you also vote, among others, the party that you would like to be the opposition party. Maybe then, by selecting our opposition party, we would get a better level of inclusion in development. Because currently in Dominica, it would seem we have 2 Dominicas, or maybe many, many Dominicas. If you were to read certain pages in social media, if you listen to certain talk shows, you would think that, my goodness, it's just total gloom and doom. You would think, for example, that the roads from town to Portsmouth, from Roseau to Portsmouth, are still littered with potholes. You would not know of the strides we have made in managing COVID, because you would think that somebody's hiding some information. You would believe, because you're from Marigot, that genuinely there's a politician in Roseau who is against you just because you're from Marigot. You would believe that there's indeed somebody who wants to steal bread from you. So I really, really wish that we can come to a point where we'll actually decide to vote for our opposition party. This is something I've been thinking about. I've actually begun to conceptualize this into a document. So don't be surprised if one day I invite you, Mrs. Smith, to a book release. And somewhere in there it's about that. Because we need, this element of unity is lacking. It has been lacking for a while. We have been tied up in a permanent political election campaign. That has disastrous consequences. It has it for us now, and even after Mrs. Skerritt retires, that is going to persist, because I can tell you, if there is one thing the opposition is very, very good at, give that to them. Hands down, I think they beat the Labour Party propaganda. Well, for one thing, they have the time. They're only government, so the opposition party normally has time on its hands to foment things, to experiment in a lab. But I will tell you, Mr. Linton Iguda, I have listened to him. He knows how to use the voice inflections. He knows the buttons to press. They're good. And unfortunately, I cannot say that the Labour Party has had a strong counter. I cannot say that at all. Not that they cannot, I suspect that they can, but we haven't seen that counter narrative from the Labour Party, which would put an end to a lot of the nonsense that we hear coming from the other side, and which tear up the population, whether we are based here or we are based overseas, you know. So the idea of unity is very interesting, but my goodness, we have to, as a people, we have to be serious about what we accept from our politicians, those who really intend on destroying our nation.
We have with us now Alia Martin with the latest results. Alia, take it away.
Right. So we've received the unofficial results from all 14 polling stations. D011, A2C, Grand Bay Youth Center, Dr. Vince Henderson, 114 votes. Julius Gabriel, 25 votes. Mr. Clarendon Andrew, 1 vote. D012, D2I, Grand Bay Youth Center, Dr. Vince Henderson, 103 votes. Julius Gabriel, 15 votes. Clarendon Andrew, 0 votes. 6 rejected ballots. D013, J2P, Grand Bay Youth Center, 144 votes for Dr. Vince Henderson. Mr. Julius Gabriel, 24 votes. Mr. Clarendon Andrew, 0 votes. And 5 rejected ballots. D014, Q2Z, Pierre Charles Secondary School, Dr. Vince Henderson, 94 votes. Mr. Julius Gabriel, 17 votes. Mr. Clarendon Andrew, 0 votes. D014, Q2Z, Pierre Charles Secondary School, 94, Dr. Vince Henderson. Mr. Julius Gabriel, 17 votes. Mr. Clarendon Andrew, 0 votes. D025, A2A, Pierre Charles Secondary School, Dr. Vince Henderson, 51 votes. Mr. Julius Gabriel, 8 votes. Mr. Clarendon Andrew, 0 votes. D026, B2B, Pierre Charles Secondary School, Dr. Vince Henderson, 53 votes. Julius Gabriel, 6 votes. Clarendon Andrew, 0 votes. D027, C2E, Pierre Charles Secondary School, Dr. Vince Henderson, 67 votes. Julius Gabriel, 10 votes. Clarendon Andrew, 1 vote. D028, F2H, Pierre Charles Secondary School, 89 votes for Dr. Vince Henderson. Mr. Julius Gabriel, 9 votes. Mr. Clarendon Andrew, 0 votes. 1 spoiled ballot and 3 rejected ballots. D029, I2L, Pierre Charles Secondary School, Dr. Vince Henderson, 58 votes. Mr. Julius Gabriel, 9 votes. Mr. Clarendon Andrew, 1 vote. D0210, M2R, Pierre Charles Secondary School, Dr. Vince Henderson, 78 votes. Mr. Julius Gabriel, 12 votes. And Mr. Clarendon Andrew, 0 votes. Again, this is the unofficial results. We have D0211, S to Z, Pierre Charles Secondary School, Dr. Vince Henderson with 76 votes. Mr. Julius Gabriel, 10 votes. Mr. Clarendon Andrew, 0 votes. D0312, A2C, Mountain Resource Center, 94 votes for Dr. Vince Henderson. Mr. Julius Gabriel, 4 votes. Mr. Clarendon Andrew, 0 votes, and 2 rejected ballots. D0313, D2J, Mountain Resource Center, Dr. Vince Henderson, 71 votes. Mr. Julius Gabriel, 8 votes. Mr. Clarendon Andrew, 0 votes, 2 rejected ballots. D0314, D2J, Mountain Resource Center, Dr. Vince Henderson, 119 votes. Mr. Julius Gabriel, 4 votes. Mr. Clarendon Andrew, 0 votes. That brings us to a total of 1,221 votes for Dr. Vince Henderson, 161 for Mr. Julius Gabriel, and 3 votes for Mr. Clarendon Andrew.
Just recap the final figures you just mentioned. 1,200 and...
Henderson, we have 1,221 votes. Mr. Julius Gabriel, 161. And for Mr. Clarendon Andrew, 3 votes.
All right.
That's it.
Thank you. So, gentlemen, I'm just looking at the figures. So, between the three, or among the three, we have 1,385 votes cast. Dr. Vince Henderson has won 1,221 of those votes, as expected, a resounding victory. And I'm comparing it to the figures from 2019 in the first instance, when Edward Regis polled 1,532 votes and Ned Parkett 211. In 2014, we had 1,766 votes among the two candidates. In 2009, 1,534, etc. The point I'm trying to make is this by-election, we see 1,385 votes among the 3 candidates. I'm leading up to a point about turnout. And of course, we're looking at scenes. We're looking at the same scenes that you are with Dr. Henderson in Lale. We have a camera set up on the Lale. Very soon, we will be hearing from the Director of the Government Information Service, Mr. Daryl Titt. We see some reporters surrounding Dr. Henderson, who earlier we saw him being carried out onto the streets.
Your flexibility went under the bar like
Yes, so here he is already interacting with his new constituents from the Grand Bay constituency, the declared winner based on unofficial results of the by-election in the Grand Bay constituency. So I was making a point earlier about turnout. It seems that the turnout pretty fair. 1,375 people casting their votes this morning in a by-election in a precarious period of COVID-19. What do you guys think about the figures we're seeing?
Well, the first thing is, I told you once we move to the Mountain Resource Center, you'll see a dramatic change in the totals there. That happened. In a by-election, you do not get the normal turnout that you get in a general election. So that is very good. Not only that, I don't think we had voters from overseas. So that is one excuse that will not be used because I don't think people came in to vote. So you don't have the overseas voters. It's a by-election where, you know, the government is already in power, and some people say, well, nous là déjà, so they're not coming to vote. So to me, that's an excellent turnout for a by-election under these circumstances.
I think that speaks a lot to the effort that the candidates put into the election. If we look at the trend of elections, by-elections, it is not always cut and clear that by-election, the turnout is lower. There was a by-election, I believe, in Maho some time back, and the turnout was pretty heavy. Where I believe the people realize that the stakes are high, they turn out. In this case, I believe the stakes were high for them in the sense that they wanted to send a clear message to the United Workers' Party that Nujala no Kewete, that is, Labor is strong. They are with the leader who told them, who asked them, please give me Vince for my succession plan. So they had to come out to show their support for their leader, reinforcing, as I said before, his legitimacy. So this case, the people came out, and that's where, in a case where perhaps the stakes are not so low, you might see a few more, I've seen a few more persons saying whom I believe. But that camp, they had to come out to make that point. that this is, Labour. We know what we want. We might love Mr. Gabriel, Mr. Handback, but however, this is what we want. We are with our PM.
And that's the point I made early on, that when it comes to the national election, the people are clear. That is why they did not vote for James Alexander. They loved so much as a principal, did not vote him as the power. So that's the point. The people are saying, this is who we want. They've said it by talking, and they've said it by voting. So, I don't know how much more time we have.
We are waiting for a live report from Lally, and we'll wrap up after that. But, just as you were speaking, both of you, I was struck again by the fact that, and I tend to agree that the voter turnout is relatively high for a by-election in Granby, and I note what you said, Dr. Jajak. But it struck me again that this is a candidate that quite a fuss, for want of a better word, was made about the fact that he was not from the constituency. But he has polled pretty well, 1,221 votes. So I guess it does go to the point you were making earlier, Dr. Jajak, that probably this is the Granby people sending a strong message that we quite accept this.
They have rumbled quietly before, but as one said, look, this is our party. We'll rally behind him. And this is exactly what they have done for Mrs. Scarrett. So that is, he can very well see that as an expression of gratitude and adulation for him. Yeah.
And I observed elections for CARICOM. I did 2 this year, Turks and Caicos and Bahamas. I went to St. Vincent last year. And the COVID has actually carefully moved the turnout. Especially in the Bahamas. COVID kept people away. And for people to come out in the by-election during the COVID, when we just had spikes, so it is very credible. And I agree with you, Jean-Jacques, that is testimony to the work that was done by Dr. Vince Henderson and his team, because he had a formidable
but also
team.
those who came before.
Yes.
Because if Mr. Bridges hadn't held the seat properly, then Labour would have lost some political capital.
Yes, yes. So a lot of work was done on the ground, and I think it's showing tonight. So I don't know when they'll turn me off, but I would want to congratulate Dr. Vince Henderson and Dr. Roosevelt Skerritt on that bold initiative, and not only the initiative, but the work that went into it. The work, the thought, the planning, and the work that went into it. And I can only wish Vince well. I know he's capable. He's more than capable if you look at the other candidates.
So we should expect he will be part of the cabinet?
Of course.
Yes.
Of course. He will be, he'll be back in cabinet as soon as possible.
And we look forward to that. And we look forward to what happens from this moment. And I was going to ask you, Ambassador, as a former senior public officer, what unfolds after this point? When can we expect to see a swearing in, for example?
Well, if all goes well, I think Dr. Henderson will be sworn in on Monday in Parliament, if all goes well.
So it can happen in the Parliament?
Yes,
okay.
On Monday.
So if there's speculation that probably it could happen tomorrow, Friday, at the President's office, you more likely think it will happen on Monday? And right now, we're just speculating, of course.
Because the House meets on Monday, so I would expect that to be done then. But that doesn't mean it cannot happen tonight.
All right. So in summary, we can say that by Monday, we should see the swearing in of the new parliamentary representative for the Granby constituency, Dr. Vince Henderson. That's a safe bet.
Possibly a shuffling of cabinet?
Well, I mean, that's
We haven't thought about that one.
I've thought about it. I'm just not sure we wanted to speculate any further what we might see. But certainly, I'm sure it has come to the minds of many people as to what happens next. And as you said, you both said earlier, the Prime Minister has not been shy. He's not been shy about his intentions. He has clearly intimated that Dr. Vince Henderson will be welcome to provide him with support in the cabinet, in the government of Dominica. So we look to see what unfolds over the next few days. What are we seeing from Lally, gentlemen? Our gentleman behind the camera, Anthony Richards, Edward Philogen. So this is the scene from Lally right now. We've been promised a report from the director of the Government Information Service. As soon as we have that, we will bring it to you. But certainly an exciting end to an exciting campaign period. I just imagine what would have happened during this campaign if we were not hampered by the limitations of COVID-19, because this campaign seemed to take on a life of its own. There really was heightened interest, and we've come to the end. Beautiful weather. Today was a beautiful day. It certainly lent itself to voting very freely in the campaign. I'm getting some direction from my director that I should wind up. Okay. So probably our report from Lally is not immediately available, but we will be hearing from Dr. Vince Henderson very soon, I am sure. So look out for that. As we just said earlier, we're not sure what day the Dr. Henderson will be sworn in, but we can expect that that will happen very soon. So we'll keep you updated on that aspect. Gentlemen, I'm going to give you a final quick opportunity to give us some closing remarks.
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity to be here. I want to end by doing something that I told myself I was going to do before I started to talk. But I came here under a little pressure. I want to congratulate Mr. Richards on the award. His honoring of on November 3rd. I listened, of course, and it was a very moving time, because Mr. Richard is one of us. Us meaning he's what? He's a Roseau guy. I'm a Roseau guy. He's a worker just an ordinary worker, like any one of us, dressed like one of us. So that felt good, to see one of us being escorted to the president for him to get this medal. You escorted him, yes. So it was an immense pride and joy to see that happen. I was happy for him and his family. And so I need to lay this out there. Thank you very much for having me, to the team. We have now come to the end of another election. I continue to say that we have to find a way to break the cycle of this permanent election campaign. Permanent election campaigns, the opposition might like them because they always have the government under fire. But what they do, they keep the population in a high state of mobilization. This population the voter sees everything in terms of somebody wants to vote for me, somebody trying to steal an election. And then we get sidetracked, we don't focus on the real issues, we don't discuss matters honestly and openly, because we're always on the defensive, always on the offensive. For the government spends a lot of time, the government spends time planning, but then it also has to spend time trying to pander to the electorate, because it knows that the opposition is also fighting to get the vote. So we all suck in this cycle. It's very expensive, and it doesn't get us anywhere. At some point, we have to break that cycle, and so that we can begin to talk together to achieve real progress.
Ambassador, your final words?
Yes, I would like to join Dr. Jajak to congratulate Brother Me on his award. I was happy to have escorted him to meet the president. I wish you the best in the future, because that's only the first award. You don't know what's coming next. And also like to congratulate GIS for putting this program together. I think the team has been working well, and Brother Me's award is also an indication of the work that is being done by the other people because Brother Me doesn't work alone. He has his camera, but he doesn't work alone. He works with other people, and he gets the necessary support. But I would like to congratulate the people of Granby for the way they conducted themselves throughout the campaign, and today, the voting, and of course, the results. I think they have done justice to themselves. And as one of them said, in Patois, we know what we want. Nous savons ça nous voulons. So now you have done what you have to do, then I'm looking forward to the government, Dr. Henderson and others, to mobilize and to get the kind of development that the people would like to see in Granby. Granby being South City, the capital of culture and other things. So I would like to congratulate you as moderator. I didn't know what to expect. I came here with, well, I have everything in my bag, you know, but I sat here with nothing. And as we progress, I pull out a couple things. I'm more there, you know. I pull out a couple things. I didn't know what to expect, but you moderated very well, got out of us what we wanted to say a long time, you didn't get a chance. Especially what we would want to see in Dominica: unity, progress, people working together. As Jean-Jacques said, shortening the campaign period. You cannot campaign for 5 years. You have to organize yourself as well. You cannot just stay campaigning. So if we can put shorten the period for campaigning like before, if we can put our heads together, we can criticize. We can criticize. If we don't like something, we should say so. And as I told you, the Granby people said during the campaign what they liked and what they did not like. But at the same time, they are focused. They were focused. And that is what I think the country should adopt. We don't like this, we don't like that, but at the same time, let us get vaccinated. Let us support the international airport, you know?
Yeah.
So that's what I would like to say at this point in time.
Thank you.
That's the first time GIS is doing this? First time?
No, I don't think so.
No, that's the first time?
You enjoyed yourself, you mean, and you'd like to be back?
No, I thoroughly enjoy myself, you know. Yes, thoroughly enjoy myself, but it's first time doing it.
Well, we were happy to have you. And Dr. Jean-Jacques, you too, thank you so much for being with us. I had a good time. I learned a lot. I look forward now to interviewing Dr. Vince Henderson and speaking about his plans for development, not only in Granby, but certainly his role with geothermal and where that particular project is headed. So I hope I get that opportunity soon. So thank you both for being with us. And thank you to our team here at the GIS. We broke the fourth wall quite a bit. You saw our cameras turned on, Brother Me Richards, and our man behind the computers, Edward Philogen, and the others, Aliyah Martin, who brought us the results. Thank you so much. Albert Tousse and Ashton Shillingford, who acted as my stand-in director. Thank you so much, and thank you for Mr. Tit, for putting all of this together. This is where we leave you on behalf of my panelists and the team here at the Government Information Service. Good evening. Thank you so much for viewing.